Hi, April. I welcome you to the Polo and Lifestyle Talks. I will start with the first question. What inspired you to found the Wellington Agency, and what gap did you see in the market at the time?
Well, my story is probably unique because I started this company. I fell into this industry by a bad situation. Well, it could have been a horrible situation. Back in the 90s, a long, long time ago, I had my son and I lived in LA, and we needed a baby nurse because my son had colic and he used to cry all the time. So we spoke to our pediatrician, and the pediatrician referred us to a baby nurse or nanny agency. And we just, you know, I was a new mom, I was very young, and I trusted the agency. I didn't really ask questions back then. You just trusted companies. And we hired a baby nurse. And to make a long story short, what ended up happening is with the first baby nurse we had come to stay, or a maternity nurse, came to stay with us, the woman was giving my son medication asleep. And he was only maybe 2 months old, and that's a no-no. And the second baby nurse we hired, we found her shaking my son, like violently shaking my son, and he was a newborn. And at the time, we didn't know a lot about, the injuries that can happen from shaking a baby like that. Of course, it was not, we knew it was bad, but we didn't know the extent, how dangerous it is. We let this woman go immediately, and we called the agency, and I let them know what happened. And instead of saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry," and taking accountability, this agency turned around, blamed me and said I was a hysterical new mother and I was young, and really just put me off as an inexperienced mom who just overreacted. And I went on with my day, and I was young. And as time went on, I, started to, understand that this is a very difficult and delicate situation. Not everybody's created equally. Not everyone cares as much as this agency or this company or this individual. So I got together with a friend of mine who was a professional nanny in New York, and we started an agency when we were very young, and we wanted to make a difference. And we both of us loved children. We both cared for children when we were young. And over time, this little agency, which I could call it a babysitting agency, back in the 90s, it grew to be a successful nanny agency. And as time grew, the business grew, and we sort of parted ways, my business partner and I, but we were best friends. And, here we are today, fast forward. Now we're in estate staffing, household staffing, and we're still doing nannies, but the company evolved and changed with the times.
I mean, this story, it's like unbelievable
It is
experience.
because there were really not a lot of laws
Yeah,
surrounded for the protections of the
yeah,
children. And if there were, I don't know if people were following them. Today,
yeah,
there are a lot of different laws to protect, children, and obviously elderly too, same sort
yeah.
of, laws. But I really wanted to make a difference. And today I've been in business, and I've been in this industry for 30 years. So I've really grown up in this industry, and I've learned a lot. And as my business grew, our vetting and our policies and our clients changed with the times.
What like personal experience shaped your understanding of high-end service and client expectations? I mean, you also mentioned it a little bit now, also your point of view.
Yeah.
But
So, I mean, I didn't grow up with great wealth. I did grow up with a family that my grandfather was a very hard worker, and he provided my grandmother with a wonderful life for his kids, and they had this circle of friends and family, with country clubs, and they had this life that was sort of gave me a little tiny glimpse into others, their worlds, not necessarily just my grandparents and my family, but looking into, how other people lived, what they aspired to be. As a young person, I didn't really appreciate those things, as probably most kids, country clubs, it's boring. Why are we here? Why do we have to, have this presentation of looking perfect? And, it was these expectations, when I was growing up, I rebelled against. I didn't want to be a part of that life. Not sure. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing with young people. But I learned a little bit in those types of circles growing up. But really, I grew up in this industry. So in this industry, I saw gradually over the years, working with families that were professionals, say doctors and lawyers, looking for nannies, either after school nannies, full-time nannies, to now and that was the majority of our clientele back in the 90s, in the early 2000s. And something shifted in about 2017, 2015, 2017. Our agency started to see a lot more high profile, high net worth clients. The needs were greater. Families didn't have one home or two homes. They had 3 homes, 4 homes. Fast forward to 2019, 2020, I'd say 98% of our clientele is high net worth and ultra high net worth, high profile families with not, 3 homes. Now they have 10 homes, 15 homes, and they need staffing for all of their properties. And it's just a different level and a different expectation.
And in the beginning, what was like your biggest challenge you had to overcome?
So in the stages of these times, when I was a young person in business, it was trust, which is the same thing today. Is back then I was very young, and my business partner and I thought, how are we going to gain trust at such a young age? How will our clients trust us because we're so young? And so we were always trying to prove ourselves as individuals in your 20s and not really knowing anything about business and about households, to fast forward to the level of service and the level of clientele we have too is pretty similar with trust. We want our clients and candidates to trust us, and we want to give advice to our clients and candidates that they will accept and understand that our agency has their best interest at heart. We really do. We aren't a company that sends resumes and candidates just to make a placement. We really stand behind our standards, our way of vetting, our understanding of what our clients and our candidates want. Our clients want a smooth, seamless household, a structured, organized household. And today, we're finding candidates at the top level. So it's not candidates that have experience, it's candidates that have years of experience and a true passion for service. And they understand luxury. They understand what this level of service is all about. And people that we're working with, these professionals, we call them, service or private household professionals. This is their profession, and they have a passion for what they do, and they take it very seriously. And if their principals, their client, their principal, their employer isn't happy, they're not doing their job. And these individuals will really do, whatever it takes to make their principals happy. They, for the most part, majority of these candidates love what they do. And our job is to provide, a happy household and to give the best information and the best candidates available.
Especially some of them are so well educated, as you mentioned, also different languages, etc.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, what has been the most important leadership lesson you've learned as a founder?
Well, I think in the COVID times, we've learned a lot, that how quickly, things can take a turn. And sometimes you get very comfortable in your branding, your message, your business. You just become comfortable and maybe a little complacent. And I feel like that was a time for us to restructure, rebrand, and really understand what could happen things can change at a drop of a dime. And also, it did give us some time to take a look at branding and marketing. There was a big shift when the internet, came out, and, we used to use back in the day, I think, the yellow pages. I don't know if you know what the yellow pages are, but that was our lines of advertising. And magazines were really for huge companies. It wasn't for small companies. Print started to disappear, and it was all about, you have to be online and you have to be online. And today I've learned it over the years, you have to stay relevant. You have to stay in print. You have to have a great marketing team. You have to have a great marketing plan. Those are some of the things that we struggled with over the years. And it took us a while to learn that, when you have a business, it's all about staying with the times and being relevant and having a message.
What strategies helped you expand into new markets? Because you are not only in Wellington, right? You're also
Right.
New York, Hamptons, and everywhere.
I started in Boston. That's where I started, in Boston, many years ago. I had family between Palm Beach and South Florida and Massachusetts. I thought, I'm going to dabble in the Palm Beach area and see how, business, if we're going to make it out there, if we're going to be successful. That was in about 2005. We were really fortunate to be able to expand really quickly, going from a smaller market in Massachusetts to Palm Beach, Miami, the Jupiter area. And over time, we just started, working in a lot of affluent cities across the United States. So, with the help of branding and marketing and, of course, the internet, you can go far with your advertising. So it wasn't really hard, but I will tell you recently, I've always had a dream to not only do staffing in the US, I wanted to start branching out into Europe. I recently got my dual citizenship in Italy, so I'm very, very excited. And we started picking up a couple jobs in Italy. We have Rome, Milan, because we have families that have homes all over the world. So if they have a house in Miami, they might have a house in New York City, the Hamptons, London. So we wanted to start doing staffing outside of the USA. And that just started. I actually have a call with a nanny agency in outside of Monaco on Thursday. So I'm excited about that. And really, it's about networking.
Yeah.
So, we're learning. And I think, in business, you have to be open and you have to listen to ideas and you have to be current. Where a lot of companies stay stagnant, we realize we have to go with the times.
That's so exciting that you're expanding also into Europe.
I'm very excited.
What are your today's luxury clients looking for that they weren't 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
I don't know what they were looking for, to be honest with you. 10 years. I don't know if things have changed. What I do know is changed is the locations, or properties. A lot of our families had a couple homes and traveled with their staff. So they might bring the staff to different locations, or they may have staff on location depending on where the properties are. Today, our typical clients have so many homes. So I don't know what is different today. People have more homes, or maybe just our clientele has changed because of our background and our history. But, luxury for them, I know that, we talked about luxury, but luxury for them it's not so much something that, you buy. It's something that you feel, you can buy something. You can, have beautiful cars and Hermes bags and the most beautiful wardrobes. And that lasts for moments, that feeling. But for my clients, I truly believe that luxury for them is, walking into a home and having things prepared for you. Just having a lot of organization and structure in the home and not having to worry about having a conversation and having it, go viral. It's a trust, and it's a feeling.
What trends are shaping the future of luxury domestic staffing?
What I'm seeing today is a lot of schooling for our industry, a lot of classes, a lot of interest. I recently joined I have a strategic partnership with a woman in California named Jennifer Lawrence, and she goes into homes and she puts together a plan of action. She does a initial consultation with these families that have staff from, say, 5 people to, 40, 50 people on staff, if you can imagine. And sometimes with that amount of people, things go wrong, or, staff, they don't always get along, just like in an office building. And she'll go in and she helps to put together a plan and structure the household. I see that this industry has changed so much because, it's become such a profession where people are going in to have classes and they're learning about how to keep a home organized. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, we just didn't have a lot of calls about, butlers and chauffeurs and family assistants. And today there's a lot of interest and a lot of people want to get in on this industry. And like I was mentioning about Jennifer and her company, she's now, in hopes or in talks to start a class at some of the colleges to train estate managers how to run a house. And I just think it's amazing. We just, there weren't classes. I mean, there were butler schools, and there are very successful butler schools across the world. But, today there's more and more people that are interested as our clientele is growing and the need for this type of staff has grown. So to me, that's a huge trend. You see it on TV with our celebrities, the Kim Kardashians and, their lifestyle. And people think it's easy. They think they can just go into a house and it's going to be easy and they want that job. And they don't realize it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. And it's a tough job. But if you love what you do, this is the right position for you. But that's the only thing that I see, that's a difference, over the 30 years. People weren't that interested in household staffing. I mean, they were considered the domestics, the hired help. Today, it's just more of a profession.
And what does luxury mean to you on a personal level?
To me, a luxury. A luxury to me is a vacation, a summer travel, getting away from the U.S. I love the U.S., but seeing the world, that to me, making memories is a true luxury. Having time as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you understand, it's to have time. I mean, you can't buy time. So having time to myself or having uninterrupted time is really a luxury. So that to me, it sounds dreamy.
No, that's very, very well.
Away from my computer and my phone. It's very hard to do.
No,
I
but
try.
it's true with the time, This is really the true luxury if you can spend it well.
I love it. I love to travel. So, yeah, I mean, you have to have a work-life balance, or you'll go crazy in any industry. If you work too hard, you just have to learn how to balance. And sometimes it's hard. That's the true luxury. Time in travel.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So it was such a pleasure to speak to you today and get to know you and your company better. And we will also leave your details from your website under the video as well. Thank you so much for today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I hope you come to the National Polo Club here.
Yes,
You're welcome anytime. You just let me know.
yes, I will.
I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Okay, Scarlett. Bye-bye.